Okay, so yesterday Shmuel said that regardless if a child knows to give back a chayfetz, so he's wise enough to know that when someone gives him something temporarily, that he has to give it back. I just lost my camera, so I'm going to redo it. So Shmuel says, Dava da'achasi, meaning, regardless, the child is only wise enough that he could be konya for himself, but he cannot be zoicha for a chayr. That's what Shmuel said. So Mosif Rab Chinin of Ardon. Rab Chinin of Ardon asked the following question: Ketzad mishtatzin b'mavli. When we know that midrabanan you're not allowed to carry even inside a mavli because you might carry to Rosh Hashanah. So what we do is we create a joint group, so everyone in the mavli should be sort of joined as one. So what do? One person takes a chavis of wine on behalf of the entire mavli. And he says, "Harezu l'chol b'nei hamavli." I want to be zoicha. I can't be zoicha because it belongs to me, but I want this barrel to belong to everybody. Everybody should have a part in it. Of course, the contents of the barrel. How does he get everybody technically to be koina a part of it? He can have any one of his children be koina the barrel on behalf of all of the residents of the mavli. Or and we're going to focus on shivcha. Hi shivcha hechadam. What is the case where someone has a shivcha Yisraelis working for him? If she's already an adult, then she goes free, my boy gabe, because we know that an Amivriya goes free when she brings Teisaris, when she becomes a Gedolah. Elalav, so we must be referring to a shivcha here who's still a minor. If she's still a minor, that means she's a katana. Yet she still can be used to be kanya this barrel on behalf of everybody else. The katani zaychel acherim. So Shmuel said, no matter what the intelligent level of this child is, even if they know to give something back when something is given to them temporarily, they still can only be kanya for themselves, but not be kanya for others. But this brisa says that we have a shivcha who is surely a minor, and she is being zoicha in this wine for the other residents of the Mavi. Zokta Gemara, shiny shitufei mevuya is derabanan. Since the whole chiyuv to make shitufei mevuyos and their v'chatzeres is only midirabanan, so the derabanan allow this type of child to make the zikui because anyway it's only midirabanan. Rab Chisda ishtik Bardon. Bardon had a good kasha, and when he was confronted with this teretz, that since shitufim avush derabanan, they relied on a key that really is not good, he could have hit back. He should not have accepted that teretz. He should have rejected it. My hava leila meimar. What should he have said? So the Gemara is simple. Call the tikkun rabbanon kain deraisa tikkun. When the rabbanon make tikkunos, they don't just make up their own kinyan that would never work elsewhere. They're always going to subscribe to the normal rules of the Torah. So if they're going to say that everybody has to have a chelik of this barrel of wine, they're going to require a normal kinyan. So therefore, it's not a good argument to say that since shitufei mevuos is derabanan, they could rely on the kinyan of a cotton, which really is not a good kinyan. But Lamaisa, someone did answer that teretz. So since the Gemara answered that teretz, the Gemara held you could say such a thing. Because they claim, Ki Aminon called the Tikkun Rabbanon Kain Deraisa Tikkun, the Milsa the Islay Ikim in the Torah. When do the Rabbanon stick to the rules of the Torah? That's when their takana is a chumr in something that the Torah says they're being machmer. But Shitufim Avuyas is a whole new fabrication of a new problem that's not connected directly to the Rashi problem. They made up a new thing that in the Rishus HaYachid, you also have to have restrictions. That's not just being machmer on halacha in the Torah. And therefore, there they would even use kinyonim that are drabon. Masav Rav Avya. Rabbi Abia had a kasha. Marimin al ma'aser sheni. Now, ma'arim means to get in the back door, to do something in a sly way. As it says, the Bnei Yisrael, the Bnei Yaakov answered Shechem be'orma. So it has in it a negative connotation. But in fact, ha'arama is not always negative. Sometimes it's allowed. And there's a big machloikis in the Rishonim if maybe harama is only allowed when the discussion is only by a D'Rabbanan Dika Isser, but there are those Rishonim who bring a raya, in fact, from our Gemara that we're about to learn today, that there's harama is sometimes allowed. Harama is sometimes allowed, even by a D'Oraisa Dika Chiyuv. And there's a big discussion in the Rishonim when it is allowed and when it's not allowed. But let's talk about this case here. Marimin al ma'aser sheni. The halacha is when you are paida your own ma'aser sheni, so that you can use the products wherever they are, and the money you'll bring up to Yerushalayim, you have to pay a 20% premium. So if you are redeeming $100 worth of ma'aser sheni, the amount of money that you have to designate to ma'aser sheni will be $120. Well, what if you don't want to do that? So what you could do is you could give $100 to your son, or to your adult son, and tell your son, you be paid the ma'aser sheni. And he is not the owner of it. So therefore, when he's paid it, he can be paid with only $100. But you have to trust him that he's going to give you the money back. So Ketzad, how does it work? Or here's $100 cash. Redeem this ma'aser sheni dollar for dollar without a 20% premium. Very simple. That's how it would work. Now we know ma'aser sheni is a d'oraisa, right? So here it seems that harama, this is one of the rise we shouldn't bring, that harama is allowed even in the d'oraisa dekalocha. So now let's get back to our sugya about a katana doing schia. Hi shivcha hechadav. Exactly this shivcha that we're suggesting you give money to, you give cash to, and have her do the redemption. If she's an adult, my boy gabe. Why in the world is she his shivcha? She would have been freed already. Thank you so much. Which is the same thing the Gemara said before. If she's a shivcha, she must still be a minor. And if she's a minor, how is it that she's able to be kind of this ma'aser sheni on behalf of her other? Zok the Gemara, halcha b'maya skinon, the ma'aser bisman hazeh d'Rabbanan. It's speaking about ma'aser bisman hazeh, which is only d'Rabbanan. Therefore, for a d'Rabbanan d'gezach, they allow this d'Rabbanan d'kakim. So it's back to the same deflection. So the Rishonim say, why did the Gemara say it's speaking by ma'aser sheni b'Rabbanan? Nothing to do with the problem of harama. It's because of the problem of the shivcha. Vice the chois from this Gemara that even by a deraisa harama would be allowed. Zok the Gemara, how could it be speaking by ma'aser bisman hazeh, and that's why it's the Rabbanon. Bisman hazeh, you don't have an Amar Avriya. The Amar Avriya bisman hazeh mi'ika. There is no such thing as having an Amar Avriya nowadays. Nowadays, referring to the times that the Gemara is referring to, the times where there was no longer ma'aser sheni midaraisa. But Tanya ain't ever every noyig elibisman shayovel noyig. So the Gemara, you're right. We cannot be speaking by ma'aser bisman hazeh midrabanan, but there's another ma'aser midrabanan that even existed when the Beis Hamikdash was standing. You had produce who grew in a flower pot that had no hole in it, so it was not really connected to the ground. That's why it was drabanan. But you for sure had an amma. You for sure could have an amma. So the amma can be used to be paida the ma'aser sheni. Okay, gewaltig. This Gemara, the next Gemara, was very hurtful to me because everybody wants to feel young, and the Gemara is going to list off different levels of halachas of youth. But unfortunately, even the highest age youth that the Gemara calls youth is still way younger than we are. So we're not young by any parameter in this sugya. Amar Rava, Gimel midas b'katan. There's 3 levels of katan. Shirar v'zarkoi, egois v'noitla. That was the lowest level of intelligence that we discussed, where a child is sophisticated enough to discern between a rock that has no value and an acorn or a nut, a walnut that has value. So that level of intelligence says, Zoichel atzmai. Is that my truck? Okay. Zok to Gemara. Okay. Nicham Tani. Okay. So Zok to Gemara. So if someone is at that level of sophistication, then Zoichel atzmi ben Zoichel acherem, like Shmuel said, Uchenegdon biktana, and a Tana that age has other halachas that would be relevant to her. Miskadeshes ulemiyun. If she doesn't have anybody to marry her off, she could accept her own kedushin. It would only be a derabon kedushin that it would require miyun. Pu'utais are a little bit more intelligent, and if you remember, we had a discussion if it's 6 or 7 or 7 or 8 or 8 or 9, according to the Charifas, mekach, they could even do a sale, umemkar and memkar, they can do a purchase or they can do a sale, b'metaltlin, uchenegdan b'ktana, and what does a ktana have an additional feature? Miskaireshes b'kedushay aviyah. If her father married her off, which would be a derisive kinyan, she could accept a get. And Rashi says, "Uchenegdan b'ktana mishigil yomam alalu," when she reaches this age of mishalcha ve'ein chazer skrinva, we call her mishalcha ve'ein chazer. She'll be mature enough to know you don't come back after a get. U'miskareshes b'kabolas atzma, when she's mikabel to get herself, it would be a good gittin. Afilu kibel ba'aviyah kedushin umeis, even if she has a kedushin deraisa, because her father was makabel kedushin for her, and then her father died. Her accepting of the get at that age would be a good get. Then we have higiu la'oinas nedarim. This is someone who's even more sophisticated. As Rashi says, it would be within a year of their bar or bas mitzvah. So their nidrei neder, their nedarim are valid. Hekdesh and hekdesh, and anything to makdish is valid. Uchenegna b'ktana chayletzes. What does that mean? Rashi says, imivia simonim. We know in order for a woman to have chalitza, she has to be an adult. So what if she saw simonim before she became bas mitzvah, before she was 12? Are those considered simonim, and therefore we consider her able to do chalitza? Or do you say shumaninu? It's just a hair growth, but it's not really an indication of godless. Once she's within a year of being bas mitzvah, we actually give credibility to those simanim. Therefore, she would be able to do chalitza. So if she saw simanim at 10 years old, her chalitza wouldn't have any value. But if she was already 11 and she had simanim, there her chalitza would be good. The limkar b'nichsei avav. What about to sell the nechasim of an estate? So someone's father died, and left over karkoyis. At what age is someone considered mature enough to be able to sell the land from the estate of his father? There he has to be 20 years old. So here you have an interesting trivia question. What the Rasidika transaction can even an adult not do? And the answer is sell land that's in an estate that you cannot do until you're 20 years old. Even though if you had your own land, you'd be able to sell it. But sell the land of the estate, the land that's supposed to be passed down from generation to generation, that you cannot do until you're 20 years old. Zok Gemara weiter. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Ketanim she'amra yiskabel ligi. A ketana who tried to be mamana a shliach lekabbalah. Eina get achi gi get liada. she could not be mamana a shliach lekabala. So therefore, if the husband was mamana shliach leilacha, then when she actually receives the get from that shliach leilacha, she will be migoreshes. Therefore, therefore, until the ketana actually receives the get in her hand, the husband can be chayzer. She'ein katan oisha shliach, because a minor cannot make a shliach. What if her father told her? Say, what if the father told him? Say v'skaba leviti gita. So we're talking about a ketana whose father has the responsibility and the right to be mekabel to get for her, and the father who's an adult was mimana shliach lekabala. That would be a good shliach lekabala, and therefore imrotza lachzor lo yachzor. And therefore, as soon as the shliach lekabala receives the get, it's irrevocable. Ha'imr tein get zela ishti b'makom plani. What if someone was mamana shliach lelacha, and he told the shliach lelacha, I want you to give this get to my wife, but I want you to give him this get in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And he met her in New York City, and he gave her the get in New York City. The halacha is it's possible, because Rashi says, whenever it gets given, it creates a tumult. And the ein v'tzoynei she'alizu alav sham ukpedu. He wasn't just mentioning Scranton as an aside. He bedafka wants Scranton, because Scranton is a place where no one knows who he is. So there won't be a tumult about him that he got divorced. But if it's in New York where everybody knows who he is, there he wouldn't want the get to occur. So therefore, since it's a denied dafka that he placed, if it's not fulfilled, the shlichus is not fulfilled. What if he just says, please give the get to my wife, but she's in Scranton now. So there he didn't express, I want the dafka to get in Scranton. He just trying to tell the shlich where to go, because the shlich should be able to find his wife. But not kosher, because we say there, he's just being mara mokim, like he's just telling the shliach advice where you might be able to find my wife. Yeah, but he could make any t'nai that he wants. He has a right to make any t'nai that he wants. The question is he making a t'nai? So if there's no reason, but only on the QT, only where people won't know about it. Because as long as he has any reason, even if you, it doesn't right. That's true. Usually everybody else knows about you getting divorced even before you know, right? Zok to Gemara, what if it was the opposite? A woman made a shlich lekabala and she stated where she wants it. The kiblu b'makamacher puzzle. Once again, it's the same reasoning as a Tanakama. She doesn't want there to be a tumult. But Rabbi Lazar has a shita where when it comes to the woman, she wants to get no matter what, and it's not possible. The Gemara is going to explain Rabbi Lazar's shita. What if she says, Have li giti mimakim plani, go to this city and get my get for me, receive my get for me, but it's a shlich lava, meaning she only wants to be migureshes once it reaches her, and instead of finding the get in Scranton, he found the get in New York, it would still be kosher. Why in the Reisha does he say that there is a hakpada to do it in a specific place? When the woman is making the t'nai, the Polak there he holds that she would accept the get no matter where it was given. It's quite simple. The get is optional for the husband. The husband could decide, do I want to give or don't I want to give? Therefore, his makbid it should be in a certain place. She doesn't have a choice as to whether or not she should be miskareshes. Therefore, we will say that she's just trying to show her shliach where to go. As Rashi says, midaitei, v'adavar tolu boy. The get is totally in the Ratzon Habal. Therefore, ikal meimer kpeidehi v'dafka karmelik. There you'll argue that maybe the husband meant very specifically that the get should only be given in this and this place. Avol the ba'karcha migrisha mino yoda the nichale labal meisahachim. She can't make k'noim. I only want to accept the get in Scranton. Maybe the husband will only want to give the get in Binghamton. So therefore, sure, her k'noim she never really means to make a real t'nai in the minui of the shliach l'kabbalah, because she has no idea that's what her husband will be willing to. So she's just trying to show the shliach l'kabbalah where to go to get the get, but she definitely is not stelling zich on it, because otherwise she's not going to have her get. She's just trying to tell her shliach, you want to go get it. Likely you'll find it over here. What if she says, bring me my get? The halacha is, so she's not megureshes yet. So if she had been married to a kohen and she was eating truma up until that point, because an Ashes kohen is allowed to eat truma, she can continue eating truma ad sheyagia get liyada, because she's still an Ashes. We'll see in the Gemara. It's a good point. Zog to Gemara. What if she said a skabaligiti? And I think that's the chiddush. Is the Mishnah is trying to show you the contrast between different type of shluchim. If she said a skabaligiti, then it's a surah lechel betruma miyad. It's not usher. It's not usher for her to start eating truma once she knows the shliach l'kabbalah has already received the get. The moment the shliach l'kabbalah leaves her sight, she instantly becomes usher to eat truma. That's a big chiddush, because maybe she met him. She might think he's somewhere else, but she might have met him right outside. What if she said there ichelas betruma achi get la'isama? What the thing I just read? It's very sure. If she said this kabalagiti b'makom then she no matter where she got to get, even if she got to get right outside, but since she said b'makom ploni, she gets to eat truma until her shliach gets to that place, which is a little bit difficult to understand because she's megureshes already, right? So that's what we're going to have to get an explanation about. Rabbi Lazar Oyser Meyad. Rabbi Lazar says she's also right away, which Moti understands, which is much more pashut. I would tell you right away what the Gemara says, but I don't understand it. So we'll learn the Gemara together, and hopefully we'll be able to make heads or tails out of it. Correct the Gemara. V'nema, let's say, before we start the Gemara, Rashi does give us a little taste of what the Gemara is going to say. So if Rashi gave us that taste, maybe we should take it. La'oisei mokem. This is where she said, "Be makabel to get from me in Scranton." We say she's allowed to eat truma, even if her shliach already received the get, but she's still allowed to eat truma until the shliach gets to Scranton. She's already in the Gereshes. Dr. Rashi, Shekach Amr Loi. This is what she told him. Loi say shluchi lekabala elasham. You should only be my shlich lekabala over there. Well, the Gemara parch, so the Gemara is going to ask, V'gita hechahabit, so it's not a get. Because if her shliach received the get in Binghamton, and she said you should only be my shlich in Scranton, so then it's not a get. So how is she even Gereshes? Right? She said you're my shliach lekabala to be makabel to get in Scranton. The shliach was makabel to get in Binghamton. So when the shliach got to get, it wasn't a good kabbalah. And now that the shliach lekabala went to Scranton, how would that make it a good kabbalah? It's impossible to get. So but none of the apostle. However, Rabbi Lazar because Rabbi Lazar tamei the machshir kishikiblei b'makim acher the mar makim hiloi. Rabbi Lazar holds by a woman there's never hakpada where the kabbalah should occur. Therefore, mishas kabbalah igr shalom. I'm sorry. What? Because she wants to get her get, so she's telling the shliach, I think that's where he is. So go there, you'll be able to get it. Lefichach mishasha pirsh milafanel. The moment the shliach is out of her eyesight, asura. Why? Shema masri chutz la'ir v'kiblu himenu. Maybe the shliach met the baal right away, and there was no delay in the get being hal. It's a possible get. Right, so if it's a possible get, so it's Masha here. Yeah, but it's Masha she can eat until she gets the get. But here, even once she receives the get, it's not a good get at all. So that's the problem. The problem is oichel b'truma sheyigia lo yishamokim. But even if he right, but what do you mean? He was makabel it already, and when he was makabel it, he was not a good shliach, right? Now he went with that get that was not valid, and he went to the other city. There was no nesina there. He's not a shliach leilach, he's a shliach lekabbalah. So once his kabbalah was invalid, so now there's no more nitzinas again. So how would the get work? That's a problem. Yeah, if it says you can eat truma, that wouldn't be shver. But it says you can eat truma at shigi lo shemakim, mashma that a no shemakim would be a good get. That's the problem. Yeah, those are good. Those it's a regular good get because she never meant to specify anything. That's right. So Frank Gemara vegita miyahava. Well, you're telling me that when the shliach reaches the place that she specified, there's going to be a good get. Via amrit reisha lo vegita. The first Mishnah told us that it's not a get at all. And for the Gemara lo tricha, the amrle, and this is the part that I need a little help to understand. The amrle, this is what she said. Hiskabel gita v'masa machasya. I want you to be makabel the get for me in masa machasya. However, v'zimnin the mishkachas le bebavel. Sometimes you're going to find this fellow in Bavel. So she's stuck in this extra line. So that extra line says, when I said do it in masa machasya, I didn't mamish mean the only masa machasya, because the fact that she tells the shliach, oh, but by the way, you might end up finding him in Bavel. So clearly she's trying to tell you that I'm not so insistent on masa machasya. So let's see Rashi. V'zimnin the mishkachas le bebavel. Even the hadar amr le hachi, since she added in, and you might find him in Bavel. Michlal de lekopta I mekable beduch ta'achrina. Obviously, she doesn't care if you might receive the get in a different place. Okay, so then it should be a get right away. Why does she still get to eat truma until her shliach gets to masa machasha? The haide kaboyele iker the masa, vaide kabale iker the masa machasha, and that she, her primary destination that she specified was masa machasha. Hachi kamer. This is what she means. Loy say shluchi lekabala lehiskarish ani al yotcha. You shouldn't be my shliach lekabbalah until you get there. So then, Viter, I don't understand. That means in Masa Machasya, that means in Bavel, you were not my shliach yet. So how does it work? So let's continue the Gemara, and maybe we'll be able to figure this out. V'zimin de mishkachas le bebavel. V'hachik amalei. Mishkal kol heicha de mishkachas le shaklei minei. Wherever you find him, take the get. Take the get wherever you could find him. However, Gita Loy Havi, it shouldn't be a good get. My camera keeps on shutting off. Gita Loy Hava Adamotis Lamasa Machas. But it shouldn't be a get until you actually get to Masa Machas. So this is what I'm struggling to understand. So let's see, Toshus, maybe it'll help us. Gita Loy Hava Adamotis Lamasa Machasya. From Tomer Toshus. From any Reutzer, should you get Ad Masa Machasya? If she doesn't want it to be a get until Masa Machasya, well then Gam Kishiyagia Lamasa Machasya lo Yehe get. Then even once the shliach gets to Masa Machasya, it shouldn't be a good get. Because in Masa Machasya, the shliach lekabbalah that she pointed is not receiving the get. The shliach already received the get in Bavel. It's no different than Tli Gitach Me'al Karka, because the Nesina was given in Bavel. The shliach lekabbalah in Bavel is like karka because he's not a shliach yet. His mandate is only masa machasya, and then he carries it to masa machasya, and then he's kind it. That's Tli Gitach Me'al Karka. So Tosfos doesn't understand this Gemara. The imari kishabal oiseyu shliach lohilocha ad masa machasya, and if you're going to say it's speaking where the Baal makes her shliach lekabbalah into a shliach lohilocha. So there's more going on here behind the scenes. We say that based on this scenario, the Baal would automatically be mamana this shliach that was her shliach lekabbalah into a shliach leilacha, v'shama v'shliach lekabbalah, and he'll only morph into a shliach lekabbalah when you get to masa machasya. Well, we discussed that issue already. You can't have one shliach morph from a shliach lekabbalah to a shliach lekabbalah. So Tosfos is baffled. How does this work? The Yeshleimer Tosfos says the Mairi, very simple. The Amar Lei. Now you're not going to like how you could type such a push at the line of the Mishnah into such a complicated case, but this is what it is. The Mairi the Amar Lei have a shliach leilacha adamat asasim. We say that in such a scenario where the wife told the shliach, you can get the get above all, but the get shouldn't be a get until masa machasya. When he gets the get from the husband automatically appoints this shliach to be his shliach lohilocha. What will happen once you get to masa machasya? The chimat es hosam shaver shliach lohilocha. Appoint another shliach lelocha in your place. So now you've given it over to a third party. Now you've terminated your shlichus. You have your chazor shlichus labal. Now you could become my wife shliach lekabala v'kablei. So it's a little bit of a complicated case, but that's what it must mean. Inami, I'd rather Tosfos answered with a complicated case that's balabatish than with a psalom. That's why it should work, as at least the facts fitted good. Yeah, we learned the shliach lekabala. What? Could be the Baal even telling him that. The Baal tells him, so this is all, I mean, the way Tosfos is explaining it is this is all with instructions of the Baal. And all that is in the Mishnah. You notice? Right? Inami, mi Babel, v'ad masa mechasya, hava hakoil shliach lekabala. It will still be a shliach lekabala. V'hava ka'omer le'isha, hareza gitech, what happens here is when her shliach lekabala accepts the get from the husband in Bovel, and the shliach lekabala explains to the husband the parameters under which he was appointed to be a shliach lekabala, the husband accepts that, and it's like the husband makes a t'nai that I'm giving you the get now, but you shouldn't be migureshes until some future date. In this case, until you get to Masa Machas. So once again, it just goes to show that even while she's getting her get from her husband, she's still ordering him around as to how to give the get. But he figured it's the last time, I'll do whatever you want. Right? I was by a chasna in Century City, and the Rav there is the Chosh of a young man. His name is Rabbi Muskin. And he's the Rav of Young Israel of Century City. And it was right by the chuppah where the chassan is about to break the glass. And he screams, "Stop!" And the whole audience gets startled. The Rav says, "Stop." And he says, "Chassan, I just want to tell you one thing. This is the last time you're going to put your foot down." What's that? Okay, Zok the Gemara Vacher. So we have two pshatim in the Gemara. It's like the husband made a t'nai. I'm giving you the get now, but it should not be kinda until you get to Masa Machasya. He's just like a Kabbalah. It's no different than Shir Shogban. What if the husband gave the wife, I'm giving you a get now, it should be chal in 30 days. That will work. But it's only, no, it's only a t'nai. The walk into Masa Machasya is not a din in the Shlich Kabbalah anymore. It's just a t'nai to get. The wife expressed it ke'il t'nai in the Shlich Kabbalah, but we already said the wife can't do that. It's a Shlich Kabbalah right away. But by her making the Shlichus, the husband understands that he's going to make a t'nai, it shouldn't be chal until Masa Machasya. Could be she said, I still have a little bit of extra truma, I want to eat it up, I'd have to throw it out. So she says, by the time you get from Baba to Masa Machasya, that'll be enough time for me to eat up my truma. It's a simple shlichus. She's a regular shliach lekabala with zero complications. It's a regular shliach lekabala, zero complications. The reason why there's a delay is because the husband makes it 9 in the sinus again. Let's discuss it later. I got it. We have to go back to it. We'll discuss the lomas later. So I'll come. We have two pshatim. Either the case is where this makes it that the husband should tell this shliach halacha to make another shliach halacha when he arrives, and then over there he could become a shliach halacha. That's one option. Or it's like a t'nai that the husband's placing into the get to delay its chalos. Zok Gemara, Rabbi Elazar Oishamiya. Rabbi Elazar holds that it's usher right away because her t'nai doesn't really mean anything at all. She's going to accept the get wherever the Kabbalah gets it, she wants it. Zok Gemara Pshita, the Amar Makayim Hiloi. Why do I need Rabbi Elazar to express his halacha? Here again, we already know that when a woman is making a shlich Kabbalah, she's never making t'nai. The Amrullah, she told the shliach, Zil lemizrach, the Isay b'mizrach. She sent the shliach, go to the east, because that's where he is. V'ka'azol l'mayrit. And he went the opposite way. So if he went the opposite way, it's impossible that he received the get right away. Because I know that my husband is in the mizrach. Ma'odetema b'mayriv halasei. Since we know he's not there, maybe you shouldn't say that it's a get miyad. right? And she's also miyad because it's going to take some time. She knows where her husband is. What? And she knows the shliach went the other way, so she knows there's a delay. So normally we're choshed as soon as the shliach walked out the door, maybe he got the get. Maybe here you're not choshed, right? Maybe it was Yankel Lev going to New York and he's driving on the 401 East for a couple of hours, right? So he didn't get there, right? Kamash Malon, that no, you're still choshed that she was wrong about his whereabouts, and maybe the shliach received the get right away. Kamash Malon Dilma Bahadid the Ka'azul Megas Go'ispe. He bumped into him. Maybe he bumped him. Rashi's Megas Go'ispe means Pageboy. Maybe he bumped into him. V'yoyev legit, and he got the get. He received the get right away. That's not what he was trying to do. He told the shliach, I want you to make for me an Erev Tchumen. So make me an Erev Tchumen in this and this location because I want to go to the east on Shabbos. Make me an Erev Tchumen over there. Use dates. Instead of using dates, use figs. Or he said, use figs, but Gregorius for Erev Lebed tomorrow. Tani Chada, we had one brisa that says Eruv Erev, it works. The Tani Idach, Ein Eruv Erev, doesn't work. So does it work or doesn't it work? Is it a hakpada or not? Rabba Loi Kasha, it's a machlekes Tanoim. Harabban and Harabbalazar. Harabban, the army kapeda. The Rabban in our mission says that when someone says in this place, he means in this place. It's a kapeda. And therefore, since it's a kapeda, I b'dafka want the Groigers, I b'dafka want the tomorrow. And if you did it wrong, I don't want the air. Harabbalazar, the Amar Mara Makam Hilai. The other Bryce is going, according to Rabbalazar, who holds Mara Makam Hilai. I don't really care. Forget, I want Erev Tchumen, whether or not you use the wrong person, but I want my Erev Tchumen, so Mamela, I'm not mocking. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Ha, V'ha, Rabbanan. Now, to say it's totally the Machlokes Rabbalazar and Rabbanan is a little bit difficult. It's a little bit difficult because Rabbalazar only holds by the wife, it's like that, right? But the husband, he doesn't argue. That's why Rashi sticks in, B'midi dalek pseida v'lo ichpesle. Only if we could explain why it wouldn't matter, right? Okay. Or Rabbi Yosef Amar, Hamba Rabbanan. Maybe regardless there's a kapeda, but kan b'shaloi, kan b'shalchavei. And Rashi explains, even though the Rabbanan said there is a kapeda, that he means b'dafka what he said, it only applies to lagabe isha. You know why? The hasam nichala, the titzel, the lav b'duchta achrina. Dafka by the Rabbanan maybe is there hakpada that it should dafka go in that place and not in another place, as we described earlier in Rashi, because I don't want people to talk about it in this city. I'd rather they talk about the get in a different city. So that's why there's a hakpada, dafka in our Mishnah's case, talking about Gittin. But when you're talking about Erevin, there's no akpada. V'hanach masnai sekan b'shaloi erevu erev b'shaloi iruve erev. The pairs that the shlich was going to use was pairs from the owner, the person who was mamanim. I don't care if you use my dates. I don't care if you use my figs. Doesn't matter. But what about the bride that says I do care that you should use figs, you should dates? Why would I care? Right? Why would someone care? Big deal. Figs, dates. What's the big deal? The bride that it says that even by the erev, a mak v'dafka the figs or dafka the dates is very simple. He going to Yovel Chavre Rishus LeReuven Mitmarm today. Reuven was mamana Shimon as a shliach. Shimon, go make an error for me, but I'm not using my own payers. Levi happens to have payers where I'm making the tchum, and Levi said I can use his payers, so take Levi's payers. But Levi said I can use his dates. Levi didn't say I can use his figs. So if I use Levi's figs, my error is useless. I have to only use error of Levi's dates because that's what he gave me permission to use. Levi said, yeah, I have dates where you want to make your Arab Gesintahide, use my dates. So therefore, when Reuben was Mamana Shimon as the Shliach, he said, take dates that Levi has over there and use that for my Arab. Surely when Reuben made Shimon the Shliach, he clearly meant only use the dates, because that's the only thing he has permission to use. The big Gregors, the Chavri, less Shusa. So if you use the Gregors, my Arab is useless. So that's why the brisa that says that a makbid is only in such a case. So for Rabbi Yosef Amar Hamba Rabbanan, really everybody agrees that by Gittin there's a hakpada, it should be in a specific place because I don't want the tumult in a certain city. But kan b'shaloi, kan b'shal chaver. If the fruits that you're using are your own to make the Arab, so you don't care if the shliach uses dates or figs. But if I'm using my friend's pears and my friend only gave me the right to use either the dates or the figs, you better believe it, I'm makpid, because otherwise I won't have an Erev. Amr Abaye. So Dr. Abaye, if that's the case, make me the Erev on a platform. The Erev b'shoivich, and he made it in a coop, or b'shoivich Erev b'migdal. So there's a different place. The Tanya Chada Eruv Erev, the Tanya Idach Ein Eruv Erev. There's also a machlokes. There, how could you possibly explain it that it's speaking that it's your chavers and there's such a akbada? Your chaver definitely doesn't care if you make it in a shoivich or if you make it in a migdal. It's the middle of nowhere where you're making there. How are you going to explain the machlokes using your same mahalach that there's a difference between shaloi and shel chavera? It's just a location. It's not the pairs. Dr. Gemara, you know why? Because it doesn't mean a location. Nami ika peri the migdal uperi the shoivich. My friend had pairs in the migdal, and my friend had pairs in the shoivich. And when I told you make the erev in the shoivich, I mean, and you're going to use the pairs that my friend has in that shoivich. If you go and make now the erev in the migdal, you're using different pairs. That's where there's a hakpada, and therefore you could still explain the distinction between migdal and shoivich the same way we explain it between Gregos and Tamarim, because the question is, which pairs did my friend allow me to use for my erev? And if you use the wrong pairs, they will not have an erev. Beautiful. Okay. He told someone, write a get and give it to my wife. Gershuha, give her a get. That's another lashon. Kisu igeris utnula, write her a letter and give it to her. These are all good expressions, good articulations of appointing somebody to give a get. But what if he told the shliach patrua, pater her up, parnesua, give her parnosa. Asula kanimus, do what you normally do with her, take care of her. Asula karoyu, loyam or klum, those aren't good expressions of aminu shlichus to create a get for him. Tanur shalchua, shavkua, tarchua. All these expressions, hare elu yichtavu v'yitnu. Those are good lashonis. So I just want to look at Rashi for a second, where he says tarchu is a lashon teruchin gershon. It's a lashon of a gershon. So therefore, it works. However, I'm sorry? Yeah. However, you said patrua, parnesua, asula kinimus, or asu karayu loy amerklu. Tanya Rabbi Nosson Naimer, patrua dvar of kayom. Patrua would be good, but pitrua loy amerklu. And Rashi says, depending on, one is a lashon, patrua is a lashon of get rid of her, it's a more of a stronger lashon. Pitrua is like it's a more of a parable lashon, so therefore we don't try to it as a proper commandment to give her a divorce. Rashi also brings in, it depends on the Aramaic or on Lashon Kodesh. Amar Rava Rab Nosson the Bavalohu, Rab Nosson, who was a Bavli, Dayik ben Pitrua lePatrua. He makes that distinction because in Aramaic there was such a distinction if it's a stronger lashon of giving or not. Tana Didan, but our Tana just says Patrua is not good at all. It's because our Eretz Yisrael, Luloi Dayik, they didn't have that nuanced difference between Patrua and Pitrua. Ibailu. What if he said Haitziua? Throw her out. Zvua, abandon her. Ma'u, Hitirua, be mad to her. Ma'u, Hinichua, let her go. Ma'u, Ha'ilula, help her out. Ma'u, Asula, Kidas, do with her what the rule is. Ma'u, all these cases, are these expressions of a proper meaning shlichus or not? We don't have an answer to all of them, but shoit mi achado, we can at least be pushed at one of the shaylas. The Tanya, Asula Kidas, Asula Kanimus, Asula Karayu, Lo Armor Club. At least those three expressions aren't good. The others we do not know. We originally used to say hayoytze b'koiler. Now the proper commandment to appoint someone to write a get is kisvu utenu get l'ishti. Write the get and give it to her. But here's a fellow who has his hands and legs in chains and is being let out to be killed. Not exactly of clear, sound mind where he can cross all his T's and dot all his I's. And he said, he told somebody, please write a get for my wife. He forgot to mention the word tnu. Because we assume that's what he meant, except under the circumstances, he didn't mention that detail. He forgot to dot his I. Then they expanded it. And they said, someone's running to the airport and he doesn't have time, and he's rushed, he could say, Kisu get leishti, and will also take it as a kisvu tnu. Even somebody who is dying, he's in very poor health, it's also accepted. Zoktamar Geniva. Geniva is our favorite fellow, right? He was the guy who was a big Talmid Chacham, but he used to bother Mar Zutra. So it seems like fate, karma caught up with him. Because Yoitzer B'Koiler Haf. He actually was once being taken out to be killed. Let me just finish because we're running late. Ki Hava Kanofik, as they were leading him out, he said, Amr, who said, Havu Arba Meyazuzi L'Rabavina Mechamra D'Naharpanya. I want for my estate 400 zuds of my wine should go to Rabavina from the wine of Naharpanya. So Rabavina hit the jackpot. Amr Abzeir said, how do we deal with this? How do we get Rabavina his fair share? Amr Abzeir, Dara Ravina L'Silte. So what Rashi says, Yita and Rabavina, Saleh al Kseifoy, Limazay Noisav, he should better pack up some Seid L'Derech because he's got to ask a Shaila how to get his rights to this will. But also, Rav Huna Rabbi, let him go to Rav Huna. Why Rav Huna? Because Rav Huna is the one who's going to paskin that he'll be able to receive his chelik. So Amar Rav Huna, Gitoi Kematanosoi. We treat the get of a shchiv mera. In other words, when he says kisvu, it's like as if he said kisvu utnu, just like a batana. Because what was the lashon that he used? He said havu arba meyazuzay rabavin mechamer. So he didn't make a proper kinyan. So Reb Huna was the one who says Gita Kamatanasai, and we compare the two. Ma matanasai imamat chayzer, just like a matna shchiv mera. If he ends up surviving, we say that he gets the money back because he never meant to give it. He's only giving it away because he was dying. Av Gita would be the same thing imamat chayzer. On the other hand, you learn the opposite way. You have a reciprocal learning limud. Uma Gita aval gav delay parish. Even though he didn't say kisvu utnu, even though he didn't cross his T's and dot his I's, kiva and amar kisvu aval gav delay matnu, it will work. Af matanasai kiva and amar tnu aval gav delay kanumi yada kanumine, even though there was no kinyan. So according to Rav Huna's interpretation, Rav Avina is good. Rav Avina can go collect from the estate. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll leave Amshir tomorrow. Correct. So the Gemara now is going to discuss the nuances of the different levels of Matna Shchivra and how they work. That's what we'll see tomorrow.